It is time to get ready for broiler chickens. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here this morning. It is a nice, cool November 1st morning 2020. So today we're actually going to be starting a short series on how we are raising broiler chickens here in the Arizona desert. Now, this isn't the first time we've done this. In fact, we've done several rounds of broiler chickens here in Arizona. However, this will be the first time that we'll be doing broiler chickens on this property. I'm going to go ahead and link our series here where we've talked about broiler chickens. If you go back to that, you can actually see from week to week, we took you through the steps of raising a Cornish cross broiler chicken. And that's essentially what we'll be doing here with a couple of small differences. What I wanted to start with today is actually setting up the brooder, getting ready for our first chick delivery this year. Let's talk a little bit about what makes it a little bit different here in Arizona as opposed to pretty much the rest of the country. The main difference that we have here is timing. So usually you have a broiler season from somewhere in March or so, maybe February, depending on what part of the country you're in, right on in through about now. So most people are finishing their broiler season as we're just beginning ours. The challenge, of course, for us is our summers kill almost everything, and that would include true broiler chickens, so your Cornish cross broilers, definitely would not survive that 115, 120 degree day that we get on a regular basis in the middle of summer. So the challenge we have here is we need to raise our chickens in the opposite part of the year. So we start usually at the beginning of October because we're just establishing the pasture here. We needed to push that off a month, so we're starting here at the beginning of November. So now back to what we're going to be working on today, and that would be our brooder. So now, we didn't do a very detailed walkthrough on how we designed our brooder, but I'll go ahead and link that video here, where we put together this basic, simple brooder. What's nice as Lori slides in, is we designed this so that it's very easy to get into and work in the brooder itself, and also work with the chicks when you have your baby chicks in here. We don't need to squat down to try to go down. All we need to do is just slightly bend over and we can start working with the chicks. And you can see it opens up nice and wide and very easy for us to get into. Also, because it's raised, it's very easy for us to work around. So as we're protecting chickens from the cold and that kind of thing, it's very easy for us to work around it as well. Obviously, when we're talking about a brooder, the first thing we need to talk about is what's going to be underneath those chicks. Now, when we designed this brooder, we designed it with a good amount of depth on the inside. So from about here to here, so almost 2 feet worth of depth that we have in this brooder. And what we're going to be utilizing is fine pine shavings, which you'll see on the ground there, which we get from Tractor Supply. So before we do anything else, let's go ahead and get the base installed here, and we can show you what we're going to be working on next. You can see that was very simple and easy for us to do, and if you look down in there, you'll see that we've only filled this up not even quite halfway. So what we'll actually do, and we'll show you as we move along, we're actually going to use this as a deep bedding system so we can continually start to create what will eventually be soil. However, this is going to soak up all the manure that our broiler chickens are going to be putting down here on this. So of course, before we can raise an animal here on the property, we need to think about a couple things, and that first thing would be water. So what we're using here is one of these little 5-quart waterers. Very simple and easy to use and easy to put together, and they don't take up a lot of space in the brooder. Now, there are a lot of options. This is just one of a few that we've used, but we found that it's very effective for the number of chicks that we'll be raising in here. Typically, the chicks will go through this in a day or two. When they're real small, it might take a few days, but when they start to get bigger, we'll fill this a couple times a day. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to make sure they've got fresh water all the time. And using a smaller water allows us to focus on that and reminds us, hey, you need to get water on these chicks. So now what we do is we actually take, again, a few different ways you can do this, but what we do is basically put a couple bricks down on top of the bedding, which will raise this up slightly as the chicks get bigger. However, when they're first here, we want to make sure that the little tiny guys can get their beaks down into here. So we'll actually just fill this with water and place it right on top of the pine shavings, just like that. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to have an area for them to eat. So we're going to show you the type of trays that we use for that. These are the feeding trays that we're going to be using for our chicks. Now, we're going to be getting 75 chicks in. And yes, this brooder will hold 75 broiler chicks. But we're going to be getting 75 chicks in on this first round. Typically we'd probably do about 100, but we went a little bit light because we're a little late into the season. But you can see very, very simple as far as how these work. So all you do to attach this is just slightly pinch the sides in, and there's a little rail, and this will slide right over the top. So very easy to pull this off, change out, or work with the feed itself. But we do use 2 of these for the little baby chicks. Now, one of the things that happens with chicks is they have a tendency to start scratching pretty much right away. And as they get bigger, it's very easy for them to tip these over. So we designed a rudimentary way of keeping these from being tipped over. This is our way of ensuring that these things don't get tipped over. You can see we have it so that it's just a basic 4x4 that fits the feeder, and this allows it so that it sits and it can't move. The only thing that can happen is this could tip over, but as they get bigger, we're able to essentially raise this up with bricks underneath it to get it up and away from them tipping it. However, we can bury this underneath the pine shavings now, so that way these don't move on these little baby chicks. So we'll just make sure when the chicks are first here and they're teeny tiny that they're going to be able to reach their feed without any problem. The last thing would be heat. So baby chicks, they need to be over 100 degrees when they're first little tiny guys arriving here on the farm via mail. So we use 2 heat lamps. These are those 250 watt heat lamps. And what we have designed in the brooder itself, through the hardware cloth back here, we can just bend that up, and we're able to drop our extension cord, or actually pull our extension cord through from the bottom. And what we'll do is we'll utilize chain that will attach to the heat lamp. And the reason why we like the chain is that we're able to adjust the height of the heat lamp based on how the chicks are reacting to the heat. And that's really what we focus in on. If they're moving away from the heat, we will raise the heat lamp. If they're trying to huddle underneath the heat, we know that there's not enough, so we can lower the heat lamp. Very easy with these small, lightweight chains. So Lori and I are going to go ahead and set up these 2 heat lamps, and we'll come back to you. Do leave plenty of slack in the cords to make sure we can raise and lower these as we need to. And then of course the chain's very easy to work with as far as that linkage is concerned. So if Lori comes in a little closer, you'll see how this is set up for those baby chicks to arrive. So essentially at this point, we're completely ready for them to be here. Now we will show you that. In fact, that's coming up here in just a moment. But one other thing, as far as the brooder and the placement of the brooder. Now, these take a lot of work. It's not a lot of heavy work, obviously, but you're going to spend a lot of time with the chicks as they get through, especially that first week when they're really fragile, making sure that their heat is correct, that you don't have any issues with the water or the feed, because a little baby chick, it's very easy for them to get stressed out, especially with these Cornish crosses, and die on you. So now, and we do find that that's pretty common, it happens, but we try to limit that as much as possible by having the brooder close. As you can see, we're here on our back patio. We have this area designed specifically for raising those little chicks. And that door right there, that slider, leads right into our bedroom. So if there's any issues, we can easily hear what's going on out here. You know, we've had neighbor dogs come out and come through the farm, and we've heard them kind of up on the patio, and we've had chicks in here before, and they're interested in what's going on. So we knew right away, and we can keep an eye on those little baby chicks. So definitely want to keep them close. And then of course you're going to need electricity in order to heat your brooder. So when you're designing the space, deciding the location, you want to take that into consideration. And then of course feed, we do have a barrel here that we keep their feed in. These little broiler chickens go through a tremendous amount of feed because they grow very, very quickly. So you're topping off their feed at least a couple times a day, especially as they get a little bit older. So we do have a feed barrel here full and ready to go so that they have something to eat. Now what we're looking for is delivery. The company we're using for this round is Ideal Poultry. We've used them several times in the past. Very good company. They're out of Texas, so they're not traveling too far to get to us, one state over. And that's what we're looking forward to this week. Those will be shipped on Wednesday of this week, and they're due to arrive on Friday, so we will pick them up from the post office Friday. Let's go ahead and fast forward a few days to those chicks being here on the farm. It is Thursday, November 5th, and if you can hear behind me, we got some little baby chicks today. So we were a little surprised. Normally it takes a couple of days for these to arrive in the mail, and it only took a day. They shipped them yesterday and they got here today. One of the reasons we like using Ideal Poultry here in Arizona, they're about a day or two away. We've never had an issue as far as the arrival time from that particular hatchery. So what I want to do is show you guys what it looks like when you get 75 chicks in the mail. So that would be 75 little bundles of, well, thirsty and hungry probably pretty soon. So we're not gonna waste too much time getting them in. It's nice today, it's probably mid-80s right now, but these girls need to be a lot warmer. You can see we already have the lights on in the brooder. We have water and we have food. And you can see the food is a small crumble specifically designed for chicks. So you can see that here. What we'll do is we'll take each one of these chicks and dip their beak in the water. We want to make sure each one of them knows exactly where the water's at. They've never had a drink of water or a speck of food, so they are definitely ready for this. We got all the chicks unloaded, and actually, thank you Ideal Poultry, you sent us an extra 3. So we double counted and we have 78 baby chicks to start, and they're taking to the water really good. I'm gonna have Lori slide in so you just look at the chicks. We have some really chatty and very thirsty baby chicks. I can see a few of them are already starting to hit the feed pretty good, which is very common for these Cornish cross broilers. Lori and I are really excited. We got these a day early. It's nice and warm today, so that's perfect timing for chick arrival here in the fall in Arizona. And this is just the beginning of the next 8 weeks for us, which is taking these little guys from this size to big bruisers that could be 8 or 9, even 10 pounds live weight. So it happens real quick. So just want to thank you guys for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down below. We've got a lot of the things that you see here in that Amazon shop. That's a free painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. All you do is basically just take this top metal piece and it will...
You have to kind of squeeze the side a little bit.
So all you do to attach this is you slightly squeeze the side in, and then and then it's very easy.
On top of that, it's easier. Not with one hand.
Maybe 2 hands.